goodbye to toxic relationships. Recovery expert TJ Woodward is here to share how we can do just that. TJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
All right, so saying goodbye to any relationship is always really hard. What's the first thing we should remember?
Well, I think in terms of removing toxicity from your life, it's just such a common conversation that's happening in our culture now. And when we think about removing toxicity from our life, whether that's a toxic work environment or a toxic relationship, we tend to think externally. If I can just remove this toxic relationship from my life, I will be happy. What I really want to have a conversation about is how we shift from what's happening outside of ourselves and look at what needs and wants to be healed within so that our relationships start to heal themselves.
Okay, and I imagine that core beliefs really keep us in or out of a toxic relationship. How do those play into it?
Yeah, and I like to call them core false beliefs. And the reason I add the word false is I want to acknowledge these are lies that we've picked up about ourselves that continue to create what we call reality. So many of us have experiences very early in life, and we develop these core false beliefs. Something like, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. And if I'm walking around with a belief that I'm not lovable, it's actually not just a thought, it's a frequency, it's a vibration. And I'm walking around, and if I walk into a room full of people and I believe very deeply I'm unlovable, I'm going to find the person in the room unconsciously, usually, to confirm the core false belief. So it's not really about communication skills or removing toxic people from our lives. It's really about healing those deeper core false beliefs.
All right, and on that same train of thought, I know so many people who maybe blame themselves when it comes to these toxic relationships. Why is it so important that we don't blame ourselves?
I am so glad you asked that because that's such a natural tendency, right? We can shift from blaming others, calling the world toxic, to going to self-blame or criticism. We really want to look not at blame, but at accountability. And there's a huge difference. When I go into blaming myself, I just keep that cycle alive. When I go in and say, I have compassion for myself, especially compassion for that younger self that developed these core false beliefs, I start to heal that not through blame, but through being accountable for realizing what I'm doing and how I can actually heal that. And that is very empowering rather than disempowering.
All right, so we've gained our power back. We've left these relationships. How can we best detox after getting out of a toxic relationship? Because that can sometimes be the hardest part.
Well, I think it's absolutely giving ourselves time to heal. And then when we feel ready, it's looking at what those core false beliefs are. And for me, it's not something we just change in our mind. In other words, I don't talk myself out of a core false belief like I'm not lovable. I start to look at when it was developed, what age was I, do that work of healing that, and we can actually go back and have a different conclusion. So it's not really what happens to us that creates reality. It's what we decide about ourselves in the world. So if we can go back to when we made those core false decisions, we can start to heal that, and then we can start to have a very different trajectory in our lives.
Beautiful. TJ, you have given us amazing advice today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It was truly an honor to be in this conversation.